Cam Boozer just had one of the most statistically dominant seasons that we've ever seen from a freshman. Yet, he's still the forgotten man when the top picks get discussed in the 2026 NBA draft because of his perceived lack of upside. Boozer's intersection of size, skill, and IQ is truly special, though. Let's take a look at why Boozer was so productive, his versatility on both ends of the floor, and why he still has a lot to work on. I'm Tyler Metcalf. Welcome to Film School. All right, so where I want to start with Boozer is on the offensive end and primarily his interior scoring because it wasn't always the sexiest part of his game, but his physicality, his strength, his scoring touch, and his composure were so effective and a big reason why he ranked in the 95th percentile overall in points per possession, but also the 81st in isolation, the 86th in post up, the 85th on offensive rebounds, 76th percentile scoring at the rim with a free throw rate of 53.6. As we can see throughout these clips, Boozer's rim pressure and shot creation, it isn't always the sexiest, it isn't always the flashiest, but it's so effective. And at his size, at 6'9", 250, it is so difficult for defenders to deal with because if you try and go small on him, he'll out leverage you. He'll bully you around. If you try to go big on him, he's quick enough where he can beat you to the spots. Like this one, I love this finish by him because he does such a good job of using his body and extending. Watch how he goes into the rim protector here. Does a great job getting low, loading up, going off of 2 feet, securing it, and gets the defender in the air, but then has the wherewithal to really extend with that strong hand, use the rim as a shield. So he's not creating a ton of space here, but he's doing a perfect job of using every inch of his body to create the best shot possible and guarantee that the defender can't get to that ball. That kind of stuff with Boozer constantly pops up. He doesn't create a ton of space, but his ability to extend through contact, as we can see here again, quick spin move. It's pretty good defense, but Boozer is using every single inch that he's afforded to create that shot, to finish off the glass. And that's really been a common theme with him throughout his entire career, but especially this year at Duke, where stylistically and schematically, they kind of took away the mid-range out of his game and told him to be, hey, everything at the rim from three. And when he was around the rim, he was such a mismatch, as we can see here, because really good screener, gets a switch, and immediately dives to the rim. He knows he has a mismatch. He immediately dives down to the restricted area, gets an incredible seal here. I mean, that's about as easy of a passing opportunity or opening that he's giving Malik Brown from the top of the key, and he just buries the defender under the rim. Really good composure, doesn't rush it. He knows he has a mismatch here, but he doesn't rush the shot. Instead, does a great job of knowing that Cohen Carr is desperate to get off his feet to try and block this shot. So he does a little head fake, gets Carr in the air, and immediately goes up. That's about as easy and clean of a post score as you're going to get. Even here, once the double comes, Boozer, this is a great example of how composed he is under traffic. We'll get into a lot more of that with his passing and playmaking later on, but as this double comes, he doesn't panic at all. He just waits for something to open up on the weak side or the defenders to make a mistake. Once he feels that defender get a little too high, he knows that he has the baseline wide open because his floor mapping and his spatial awareness are so good that he knows exactly how much space he has. He knows that once he's able to get his momentum towards the rim, this defender doesn't have a chance. So he does a great job of moving the defender, shot fake, because he knows the help defender's still on his back and he's coming to swat the shot from behind, so he doesn't rush it. Shot fake gets both defenders in the air, and then he finishes through the contact. I know that it's not the sexiest stuff, and I know that Boozer's offensive scoring repertoire in the NBA isn't going to be solely based in the post, but the fact that he can go to this kind of stuff relentlessly and finish through contact, draw a ton of fouls is super valuable, especially if whatever team he goes to scales him down a little more because he's not an NBA 5, but at the 4 spot, acting as the screener, creating from the perimeter, he's going to be able to generate a ton of switches, a ton of mismatches that he can then go into the post and abuse, whether it's out of drives, the short roll, straight up post ups, or offensive rebounds. The biggest area of growth in Cam Boozer's scoring arsenal over the last couple of years has been his outside shot, which has now turned into a very, very real weapon for him. Not just an occasional thing where it's like, oh, it's cute that he knocked down a couple threes today. It's if he's given space from behind the arc, he has legitimate NBA range and is more than confident in letting it fly. There is a pretty stark difference right now between his ability to shoot off the catch and shoot off the bounce. It's a little more comfortable in the mid range than from outside, but we do see the effectiveness fall off between shooting off the catch, where he's gotten very good, and shooting off the bounce, where he's about average. But in these pick and pop, catch and shoot, spot up situations, Cam Boozer has turned himself into a very, very real threat. And that's a crucial development in his game. As we can see, the mechanics look sound. And if he's paired with a really dynamic on ball pick and roll creator or isolation creator who can get their shot out of anything, if he's a screener, it puts defenders in a nightmare situation as they now have to guard the ball handler and the primary initiator, as well as the lethality of Cam Boozer's shot. If he's just spotting up off of a really adept isolation creator, that takes away his defender's ability to rotate down and help on drives or switches and all that kind of stuff too, because we're continuing to see the volume increase, and it makes his feasibility of scaling down and being that full-time four and potentially even a three sometimes if he's in jumbo lineups way more realistic. And this threat of him shooting from outside this consistently and this reliably also opens up a ton of other options and opportunities in his game for him to attack and dissect defenders, whether it's scoring on the interior or creating for others. One of the most underrated or underappreciated aspects of Boozer's game is his passing. It is incredible how surgical and accurate and intelligent Cam Boozer is as a passer. Statistically, he basically graded out like a lot of guards with a usage rate over 30, an assist rate over 25, a positive assist to turnover ratio, and a turnover rate under 15 for a 6'9", 250-pound forward to be doing that kind of stuff is insane. And we can see it in all levels of the court, whether it's really accurate outlet passes right after a defensive rebound, cutting up defenders and defenses from the post when they send a double, operating and finding cutters from the top of the key, kicking out of drives, throwing lobs out of drives. It doesn't matter what part of the floor that Boozer's in. He always has his head up and knows exactly where everyone on the court is. It makes doubling him in the post absolutely impossible. As we can see throughout these clips, every time the defenders try and do that, he torches them. They go early here. He immediately finds Malik Brown. Rotation's a little late. They get 2 points. It's constant. Here they go early. Low man's over on Malik Brown to take away that 2 points early. He's where he should be. No problem. Boozer doesn't hesitate. Immediately recognizes it. Skips it all the way to Dame Sarr for the wide open corner three. His processing speed and his ability to identify and anticipate where defenders are and where they're going, it's incredible. Players his age rarely see the floor this effectively, and players his age at his position almost never, ever do. The fact that he's doing this kind of stuff as a freshman, and he was doing it throughout high school as well, is so fascinating and really exciting for how he can elevate whatever NBA team's offense he goes to. Because when we think of the high motion, high activity, really intelligent, creative offenses in the league, Boozer can fit in from day one and really, really elevate the ball movement and the shot creation throughout that lineup. He's incredibly unselfish. Throughout this entire freshman year at Duke, Boozer easily could have pivoted into, no, I'm just going to go get 40 every night. And he probably could have. But instead, he was more focused on making the right play almost every single time out there. And a lot of the times that was using his scoring gravity and his physicality on the interior to find open teammates, to create open looks for them. And that is a rare skill. And the fact that he's able to take defenders off the bounce like this, secure the ball through the contact, and immediately recognize Nick Menia in the opposite corner and thread it through the traffic right into his shooting pocket. It doesn't get much better than that. And his film throughout his time at Duke, throughout his time at Columbus, is littered with this kind of stuff. He isn't focused on making the flashy play. Some of the playmaking stuff isn't him manipulating defenders or sending them the wrong way or delivering no look passes. It's him making the correct play, identifying where defenders are, and capitalizing on their lapses, even if they're incredibly minuscule. And that ability to be such an adept and efficient and high volume playmaker at his position could not be more valuable in today's NBA, where everyone on the court is absolutely required to dribble, pass, shoot, think, and keep the ball flowing to generate the best looks possible. Very few players in this class do it as well as Cam Boozer has throughout his entire basketball career. So now that we've looked at the individual aspects of Boozer's offense with his interior scoring, his outside shooting, and his playmaking, we can see how it all functions together into both an on-ball and off-ball role. So we're going to start with his off-ball creation here, and the way that he's able to leverage his shooting gravity to create for others is really, really useful, because 2 years ago, defenders could close out short on him here, but instead, and he's shooting 39% on decent volume this year, Henry Vesar has to close out hard. Boozer attacks it, forces the weak side, or the help rotation from, I believe that's Trimble, and instead of just barreling to the rim or barreling into Trimble to pick up a charge, Boozer makes a simple play. He recognizes where the defender comes from, what that means for his teammate, and kicks it out for the wide open three. Similar thing here. Moves the ball, catches, attacks the gap immediately, gets downhill before his defender can get there, recognizes the defender's collapsing in on him, and once the middleman's, the rim protector steps up here, Boozer knows that Foster's defender is going to have to collapse down to Pat to take away the lob. So Boozer just makes a simple play. And all of this stems from his off-ball, from his awareness and his IQ, but also his improved threat of shooting. And even though Foster doesn't put up the shot here, I mean, NBA shooter, that's going up, first of all. But the fact that it doesn't, Boozer's initial drive put him in the middle of the lane, and that keeps him in position to then eventually corral that offensive rebound and get the 2 points himself. Here, off-ball screen, shooting gravity, attacks that closeout again, forces the help rotation, avoids the charge, leaves his feet, kicks out to the wide open man in the corner. Guys his size don't typically create like this in off-ball roles. And the fact that he's at the point where he is, and that is well behind NBA range, and he's, 4 feet behind the three-point arc here, and a little shot fake is drawing that type of closeout, that's fun. And the fact that he has the wherewithal to then attack that closeout is really fun. Gets down, does a great job gating downhill, draws the foul, doesn't get the bucket. But another just really fun example of how his shooting gravity and improved shooting capability creates these types of situations for him to act as more of an off-ball creator, get downhill, finish at the rim. Spotting up in the corner, again, a little shot fake, attacks middle, and this is just bully ball. This is grown man strength from a freshman, and because once he gets the defender leaning, does a great job of initiating the contact here, but not extending with that off arm. He does such a good job of creating enough separation going into his defender's chest, but not being reckless with it and extending with it. Keeps his balance through the contact, Euros, and finishes uncontested at the rim. Here we got him on the left wing, little jab step, attacks middle, gets downhill again. He's too big, he's too strong, and when he's making decisions this quickly as a defender who's trying to close out from the middle of the lane all the way out here, and you have someone 6'9", 250 making split-second decisions and toying with your momentum like this, it's impossible to stop. And when we think about Boozer in an NBA role, my favorite role for him is as that complementary player, as a number 2, as a number 3, not position-wise, but role offensive initiator wise. I don't think he's a number one necessarily on a title team, but I think he could be the one of, if not the best number twos in the league. And it's because of stuff like this, his ability to make split second decisions off the ball, attack gap coverages, attack rotating defenses, and use their momentum against him, because he's truly grown into a 3 level scorer who's lethal at the rim, who's rapidly becoming deadly from outside, does have a really fun mid-range game going back to high school, but now is also a really lethal and surgical playmaker who can use his scoring gravity to create for others incredibly consistently. And most guys his size, his age, simply can't do that stuff, and they simply don't have that type of body control. Now, where things get really fun and kind of cuckoo is when we look at Boozer as almost a primary initiator, which he ended up basically being at Duke this season, and specifically looking at his pick and roll versatility. As the initiator, 77th percentile in scoring pick and roll, plus his passing, 89th percentile, 82nd percentile as the roll man. And that ability to run inverted pick and rolls, which the combination between him and Isaiah Evans this year turned into a deadly combination for Duke, is really fun. And his ability to just be a really effective, versatile roller, whether it's out of the pick and pop, hard rolls to the rim, or operating out of the short roll in terms of creation or playmaking situations, it's so valuable, because there isn't a situation that an NBA team can put Boozer in where he'll be uncomfortable this year. We've seen him operate out of isolation. We've seen him run the pick and roll. We've seen him be the roll man. We've seen him be a spot up shooter. And stuff like this just isn't normal. Like, I promise I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but freshman bigs running inverted empty corner pick and rolls, getting downhill, and then hitting the rotating defender with a Euro step, elevating, finishing with his offhand through the foul. It's special stuff, man. And again, right here, not quite empty corner, running it from the middle of the floor, but Pat's clearing out to basically create that empty corner look. Does a great job. And also, please keep an eye on Isaiah Evans through a lot of these inverted pick and rolls, because his ability to be like a legit screener, so valuable. But creates space for Boozer to get downhill. And again, nasty, just a nasty, vile, rude, cruel little Euro step that he hits here. Totally destroys Michigan State's rim protector there. And Boozer's ability to run these types of pick and rolls, either as the primary guy or either as the initiator or the roll man, it's exciting. Because when we think about him going to, say, the Grizzlies, and him running a 4-5 pick and roll with Zach Edey, that's going to be a nightmare to stop. When you think about him running a pick and roll, whether inverted or not, with Cedric Howard or Jalen Wells or even John Morant or Scottie Pippen Jr. or Cam Spencer, it is going to be a nightmare for defenders to deal with, because there isn't a right decision to make in terms of who you cover. If you sag off of Boozer, whether he's initiating, then he's going to knock down a three or find the open man or get to the rim. If you commit to the ball handler while Boozer's on the roll, he's going to pick you apart from the short roll or knock down a wide open pick and pop three. He's going to create so many mismatches and disadvantage or advantage situations for his team on offense that most rookies right away don't. And once he continues to develop that type of chemistry and just natural feel with his teammates over the years, there are really scary offensive upsides that for him and his team, because all he's going to do is elevate the play of everyone around him because of his ability to profile as a guard, to pivot and scale down to being a stretch big. It's a really fun and special skill set that the Grizzlies, the Bulls, the Jazz, the Wizards could all incredibly benefit from. So even though it isn't always the sexiest stuff, man, there's so much versatility and creativity and effectiveness that I promise you cannot sleep on, because it is so valuable. As awesome as Cam Boozer's offense is, there are still a lot of warts, and it's primarily with his finishing consistency and his shot creation because there's very little in terms of his on ball shot creation that was like blatantly easy stuff. I'm not worried about his outside shot or his mid range jumper really at all, but for someone of his size, of his profile, to be shooting just 60% at the rim in the half court, it's kind of concerning. And when he went up against the bigger, more NBA like rim protectors and bigs, he kind of struggled a lot. Now there are plenty of great games that he had, but just 60% at the rim with very limited wiggle and fluidity and agility in his game, it concerns me. And that's where I really struggle putting him above guys like Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonsa, because when it comes to, hey, can you just create your shot out of nothing? It's, game 4 of the playoffs. We have 10 seconds. Can we just give you the ball and go? Can you go get us a bucket? Can he make the right play? Absolutely. But can he go get a bucket on his own, get something easy? That's where I struggle with him, because everything with his scoring repertoire as the primary guy is solely based on bully ball. And the more he continues to transition up in competition, it's just going to be more difficult because he's going to be going up against guys who are built just like him with way more experience every single night. And the fact that his entire scoring arsenal is A to B, and there's really no variation and really no lateral wiggle, unless he has a clear runway and can hit guys with Euro steps and stuff. There just isn't much creativity there. It's really difficult. It's sloppy. It's kind of ugly. He's going to live at the line because of that physicality. But as we can continue to see, it's really, really difficult for him to just consistently generate clean looks because there isn't that lateral wiggle and there isn't that vertical pop that most guys at his position have. So when we look at Boozer's offense, I get really excited about the decision making, about the scoring versatility, about the pick and roll versatility, the off ball creation, but I get really excited about it as a secondary creator. If you're bringing him in and expecting him to run the offense, be your offensive creator, be a heliocentric type of guy, I think you're just kind of missing who Boozer is as a player, and he's someone who more so elevates the floor of the offense and the game of everyone else around him, and not quite so much the ceiling. Let's flip over to the defensive end of the floor, and admittedly, this is where I struggled the most with Boozer, because I thought he was honestly pretty bad this year on defense. But let's start with the good, because there's so much of it. Coming into this year, I thought Boozer was so good at moving his feet, being in the right place at the right time every single time, being a step ahead of the offense throughout his entire time in high school. And I thought he was going to pivot that into college right away. And sometimes he did, but not all the time. As we can see throughout these clips, though, when he's really sitting down in his stance and sliding his feet, he looks incredible. He can switch pretty much 1 through 5 because he has the strength to deal with guys on the interior, but then the footwork, the agility to slide with guards on the perimeter. Like, this play is incredible. The amount of ground he covers, what he's asked to do here. So he's initially the drop defender and is just showing he's just trying to take away that drive, but not switching. He's waiting for his brother to get back over before he closes out under control, good stance, chops the feet, high hand to disrupt that view. Ball handler hits him with a jab step, doesn't really shake Boozer at all, gets low, reacted to it a little bit, but gets back a little closer, high hand again. On the drive, wide base, great stance, slides his feet to perfection, absorbs the contact, opens his hips back up, does a great job of flipping them, staying on balance the entire time. The entire time here, he does a great job of staying low, absorbs that contact, opens up his hips without dropping too much where he gives the ball handler a ton of space, stays attached, defends with his chest again, swipes down without fouling. High hand forces a really tough fadeaway. That's the special stuff from Boozer, because when he's doing that stuff, really committing to his fundamentals, sitting down in his stance, it's hard for guys that big. It's pretty special. And as even as a weak side rim protector. That's where I love his defensive playmaking the most because he's not quite explosive enough to be a primary rim protector, but when ball handlers are held up a little bit and he's able to rotate from the weak side and get his timing right, he can be so devastating. High points it here against Gillespie, immediately hits Dame Sara on the outlet. That's the kind of stuff where the most of his value comes. Again, playing with a five and Big Pat here does a great job of capitalizing on Pat, holding him up a little bit, and then coming in to clean stuff up from behind from the weak side. In the NBA, though, Boozer's going to be asked, hopefully, to predominantly be a four, which means he's going to be defending on the perimeter a lot. And situations like this where he's switched on to guards are going to happen constantly. He's going to have to be perfect. Sliding his feet like this does a great job there of drawing the offensive foul, but it's going to be fascinating to see how disciplined Boozer is with his fundamentals in these situations against NBA guys, because NBA guards they're quicker, they're faster, they're stronger, they're more creative, they have a tighter handle, and if Boozer's not sliding his feet like we're seeing throughout these clips and really sitting down in his stance, he's going to get exposed. But when he's locked in, when he's really disciplined and committed to that end of the floor, there aren't many in the country who are as good as him, who have as good a feet as him. That's why I'm really excited and kind of desperate for him to scale down to like 240, because I think it'll make those situations with him defending in space way more easy, more realistic, and make it just a lot more consistent for him from start to finish. Now, unfortunately, there was a lot of bad with Boozer's defense as well, and mainly it stems from him just looking heavy and not looking like he was the agile mover that we saw throughout high school, and wasn't committed to the defensive fundamentals and the really crisp footwork that we saw in all of those clips where he looked fantastic, because for most of the year he was upright, his feet looked heavy, he had happy feet, he was all over the place. I do think a lot of it was a symptom of schematic stuff where they had him buried in the lane a lot of the times, which then led to really long, kind of inconsistent closeouts from him. There was probably some directive there too of, hey, just don't get in foul trouble, because if you get in foul trouble, we're kind of screwed. So I do think there was some of that, but let's dive through some of these one by one, because we can see a lot of the inconsistencies here. So right off the bat here, really square, much higher in his stance, hunched over at the waist more, and not sitting down in that stance like we saw from him, which leads to situations like this where once he does get down in that stance, it's too late because Kadir Copeland's already hit him with that counter. I don't know what he's trying to do here. I think he's just trying to wall him off, but he's a step behind, so it looks like he's just kind of tripping him, and he gets torched here. Gets a miss, but not because of him. And then here, Caleb Wilson is obviously rocks and is an awesome athlete, but that jab step sends Boozer, back to Columbus. It's really crisp here, and that reactivity from Boozer on those types of moves where it's just one simple jab step, they sent him the wrong way a lot of the time, and that's just way too easy of a drive to be giving up. Here in the pick and roll, they switch it here, but really undisciplined. We can see him just bent over at the waist here. I don't know what the plan is because there's a lot of time left, and just get a hand up if he's pulling up for the shot here. But instead, he closes out really sloppily and gives up the drive, which then forces the rotation from the weak side, which opens up Seth Trimble on the opposite side of the court for the wide open corner three. That's not Cam Boozer's man, but it all stemmed from this really lazy, sloppy closeout. And I mean, just even in the drop coverage here, look at his feet. I mean, he's kind of just all over the place. They're happy, they're moving, he's off balance. It's uncharacteristic of what we saw from him throughout high school, but it's the kind of stuff that popped up all season long. On this one, Jakari White just has him dancing. Initially, pretty good stance. And he looks like he's ready to go, sitting down a little more than we saw. Still a little too hunched over, but he's a big dude. give him a little bit of slack. But like that Caleb Wilson one, jab step sends him the wrong way. Now Jakari White's just toying with his momentum. He initially recovers, but then that little hop step here, I don't know what that is. Guys do that thing all the time, and it drives me insane. Like what is this going to accomplish? Where this 2 foot hop, that's not good for anyone. That doesn't help you in the slightest. Kids, don't do this. Because he does a nice job of initially recovering, just throw a hand up. If he shoots, he shoots. But what you can't do is be jumping around like a bunny rabbit and giving up a drive yet again. Now he gets bailed out with Dame Sar making the rotation. He gets back into the play and gets the deflection, but Jakari White had him dancing throughout that entire possession. And here Ines just hunched over again, way too upright, and I believe that's Chance Mallory, just beats him to the spot. If you're going to be defending a really quick point guard this far out, you cannot be this upright. It's never going to work. And the bigger problem is that Boozer just doesn't have the length or the explosiveness to trail a guy in these types of situations. A lot of bigs who are a little more explosive or who have a little more length can do this and stay attached because they can then get up and time their blocks at the rim. But Boozer with a sub-3 block and steal rate, that's really concerning. And it's this kind of stuff that constantly tells me, it's like, all right, well, he can be a good perimeter defender and team defender, but he's just not a 5. He cannot be your primary rim protector because he doesn't have those instincts and these the happy feet, the undisciplined defensive fundamentals that he showed throughout the year have to get corrected. If they don't, NBA guards are going to pick him apart, and the fact that Henry Vasar is moving him like that in the post, unacceptable. So there was a lot of good in Cam Boozer's on-ball and perimeter defense this year, but also a lot of fat that needs to get cleaned up. And when he measured in at 252 at the combine, it makes me wonder if he was maybe closer to 260 this year at Duke, and just really further illuminates how desperately I want him to scale down to 240, because when he's lighter and moving laterally like he can be really fun. When he's a little heavier, it looks like this. What was even more concerning, though, with Boozer's defense was the inconsistencies and lack of awareness as an off-ball team defender, because that was an area where he, again, thrived throughout high school, throughout AAU, and we just didn't see it this year. There was a lot of ball watching. I do think a lot of it was schematic stuff where they just buried him in the rim. They did it with Pat a lot, too, to try and secure, defensive rebounds and stay out of foul trouble. But this kind of stuff is unacceptable, especially if he's playing 4. But even if he's the primary rim protector, giving up or just missing rotations like this, combined with a block rate of just 2.2, not great. So he is a 4. But like UConn moves so much without the ball that the fact that he's ball watching like this, he gives one quick little peek over his shoulder. But you got to know that Alex Karaban is constantly moving without the ball, especially when Terrace Reed has it in the post. And by the time that Boozer recognizes where Karaban is, it's already too late. Great pass, but Boozer was sleeping. Here we see him as the low man, and this is the kind of stuff I was talking about with schematic stuff and just burying him in the paint. Like, Trayvon Brazile can shoot. We know this. Everyone in college basketball knows this. And the fact that he's flaring out to the corner here, and Boozer is still just asleep in the middle of the lane, is unacceptable. Like, what is this? You're giving up a wide open 3, and that kind of stuff is just money. And if he's doing that against NBA level forwards, he's going to get cooked, and he's going to get benched real quick. Again, I think it's schematic stuff, but I'm not in their locker room. I don't know for sure, but it's not a great look. And the primary rim protector stuff, this is bad. And he kind of gets caught. I think his thought process is, I don't want to commit too early and give up an easy dump off or lob to top it on the back end here. But he never elevates here with Watts. He's late off the floor. There's no elevation, and Watts wasn't scared to challenge him. And that was a common theme as well. Opposing players were not scared of challenging Cam Boozer at the rim because they knew that he wasn't that he's not a Skywalker. They know that he's not going to really elevate and explode and swat their shot away. And when he's not able to meet ball handlers early and wall up and use his verticality early, it's really, really kind of easy for opposing teams to finish around him. And then here, just again, another major brain fart in transition. He has to know. I mean, his floor awareness is so good that he knows that he's the only defender on this side of the court other than Hymenia. He knows that they're down a man for now, and that 13 is going to the rim here. So I don't care that that zero is wide open here. You can't give up the wide open look inside, or at the rim. And yet he does. He gets caught in no man's land, doesn't rotate. So the combination of inconsistent perimeter fundamentals with inconsistent off-ball awareness was so not what I was expecting from Cam Boozer coming into the year. Because if you go and look at the preseason high school scouting report I did on him coming into the year, I was emphatic about how good of a defender he could be with how well he moved in space, how well he rotated from the weak side and anticipated opposing players' actions and met them at the spot before he needed to avoid fouls and disrupt the offense. And we didn't see any of that consistently throughout this year. So it's not quite a red flag yet, but it's burgeoning on yellow. And if it's something that Boozer doesn't clean up early in his career, it could get kind of funky pretty quickly. So where does that leave us with Cam Boozer? Because there is so much to like, but let's get the bad out of the way. The defense needs so much work. When it's good, it is incredible. But it was rarely incredible this year. And the vast majority of his defense, both on and off ball, it was undisciplined. It was uncharacteristic for who we had gotten to know Cam Boozer as a defender. Hopefully that was just a one-year situational thing at Duke, and in the NBA, it gets back to where we thought it was in high school. Offensively, he is a monster. The finishing, creativity, and craft and wiggle, it's bad. And I think that limits him as a primary number one offensive scoring option on a championship team. But guess what, folks? That's a really small bucket of players in the entire league. So if he doesn't fall into that, that's not an indictment. That's not an insult, I promise, because I think he could be eventually, arguably, the best number two offensive option on a title team. And that is fun because his quick decision making, his IQ, his scoring versatility, and his physicality are absolutely lethal and so much of a nightmare for defenders to deal with. So when I look at my big board and where he's going to fall for me, I just can't get him to that 1 or 2 spot where I have Darren Peterson and AJ DeMonsa. I think those guys have separated themselves into a tier of their own. But in that next tier with Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer's right there. So come draft night, he's either going to be at 3 or 4 for me. Right now, he's at 3. I'd be shocked if it really changes a ton because I think he is so reliable and his base level skill set, like even his B- outcome, I think could be an all-star. I think could be the type of guy who puts up awesome numbers, contributes to winning, and just isn't flashy or sexy. But when we look at his A-plus level outcome, is it Timberwolves Kevin Love, who was a monster? Is it Al Horford? Is it the modern version of Karl Malone? Those kind of guys are perennial all-stars, are perennial all-NBA caliber guys, and who constantly contribute to winning plays on both ends of the floor for title teams. Cam Boozer, I'm still not convinced, can be the number one option on a title team, but few can. I think what he can be, though, is someone who elevates the game of everyone else throughout the roster and makes everyone around him better and constantly contributes to winning basketball because that's all he's ever done.